step forward.
Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing? This is another episode of the Then and Now podcast. Today, we're going to be doing a review for the Eternals movie. We all have some pretty great opinions on this. I feel like, obviously, it's very controversial in the quality of the movie, but we'll get into all that. This first half is going to be a spoiler-free review, so throw it on the screen, spoiler-free. If you haven't, please like and subscribe and share this around with everybody else. Getting into it, I have my co-host Ethan Murphy. How you doing?
How do?
And my other co-host, Mr. Lelouch V. How you doing, Ethan? Otis. Oh my God, Jesus Christ.
You said first you said the stage name, then my real name.
Bro, because I don't call you by your stage name on a daily basis, so it throws me off.
That's perfect.
But getting into it, I guess we'll start with Mr. Lelouch then. What are your... Obviously, I feel like you had some really strong thoughts on the movie itself. What are you thinking?
I enjoyed it. I can't physically fathom how even a portion of the people that have seen this movie have thought to say that this is the worst movie to date, like the worst Marvel movie to date. It's like it's actually a movie. Like it has a beginning, middle, and end, so that like is better than like a quarter of the Marvel movies. Because like I feel like, I mean, we talk about it all the time, but you know, Iron Man 2, Thor 2, Iron Man 3. I'm gonna save the other couple of ones I want to name for a later thing. But yeah, this movie is automatically above those. Now, I think it does have some flaws, but I mean, what movie doesn't at this point? I'm gonna start off being nice because I want to give a little bit of what you guys have to say, and then I'm gonna throw in, you know, my contrary opinion because I think you guys are a little bit higher on it than me.
All right, Brandon. What about you, Mr. Ethan Murphy?
Right on. I don't have a screen name yet. I will, or a stage name. I will. I'll get one. But I think ultimately, fair. I think ultimately what it is about this movie, it's a varying amount of taste, or what you prefer in your films. A few weeks ago, we reviewed Dune, and for me, that movie just seemed so vacant of joy.
I don't like sand.
And
emotion.
So for me, it just didn't work. But that movie has a really high. Rotten Tomatoes loves it. Got really high fan ratings. Already got approved for part 2 or for a sequel. But it didn't work for me. This movie, it worked for me. That being said, I can understand how some things just may not gel with certain people. How they may see the overall big, long, sweeping, epic type of feel doesn't feel like a superhero movie or a Marvel movie specifically. So right. I get it where that might clash with some people's tastes. I do think it is a coherent narrative. I do think that it does have overall a driving force and interesting characters and a genuinely fun environment, but it's not for everybody. It just isn't.
It also passes the Bechdel test.
It punches the Bechdel test in the nuts, literally and figuratively.
All right, bump all that. Get into the real stuff. Let me talk about shit real quick. Look, I'm so tired of people that watch these movies and go in. Okay, it's okay to be a casual fan. Don't get me wrong. When I say casual, I'm not meaning that in any kind. It's not a derogatory term. It's just what it is. If you're a casual like Marvel fan going in and stuff, and you don't know a lot outside of the MCU stuff, that is perfectly fine. But do not act like if something isn't the characters that you grew up watching, then it's bad. I hate that people do that all the time. They're like, well, it was fun, it was action, but it didn't have Cap, or it didn't have this person. Fuck Cap. Anyway, that's a whole different tangent. But this is just, to me, the best made movie that Marvel's put out to this point. Like Otis said, going into the acting wise, it's probably the best for the actors being in here. It's not over the top. The cinematography, oh my gosh, there were multiple times in this movie, especially like the last sequence, where I looked at how they shot it and it just looked beautiful. Like it looked wild. Like it didn't look like it looked like I was on somewhere else. I don't even know how to explain it. It looked dope to me. Like how like the water, again, it's spoiler free, I almost slipped up. But yes, the acting, cinematography. The only thing I feel like was a little unnecessary, there were like certain like monologues and certain flashbacks I feel like were needed and some weren't needed. We'll get into that more detailed in the spoiler in the second half. But all in all, this is just the best made movie. Like it is. Like there's no arguing that. Like if you look at this movie, it's not even a Marvel film, it's a cinematic film. It's the best made cinematic film that Marvel has put out. Marvel Studios has put out at this point, to this day.
I can't agree. But go ahead, E. I'd like to say something.
What were you gonna say, Otis, as far as the best? Because you said great. What do you think is the best Marvel movie put out then?
I mean, when it comes to the overall cinematics, the build up that led into it, I don't think there is anything better than Infinity War, personally. Like, I mean, one, having it from the perspective of the villain, like I don't think that's something that you really get to see often in movies, because like Infinity War is a Thanos movie. Like the Avengers are in there, but it's a Thanos movie. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Seeing the build up that you have from these characters between all their movies, that was great for me. Like some of the scenes from the different planets that you see Thanos on, like those shots are gorgeous. Like to make them even look seemingly real while we know that Thanos is obviously completely CG, I feel like that was really impressive. And then like with it being from the perspective of the villain, that's the best villain that they've ever formatted in the MCU, at least in my opinion.
He's one of the best characters in all of Marvel, not just villains.
He's better than half the Avengers if you really ask me. I'm just
a lot of characters. I agree.
So like, I mean, the Eternals movie is up there for me. Like I definitely put it in my top 3 movies, probably. Like if we're talking about it like as an individual movie, it's probably my top 3. Cinematically, it's gorgeous. I mean, I won't argue that point, because I mean, the movie is beautiful. But I can't say that it is definitively the best. Just me personally.
I'm not mad at you saying Infinity War, or even if you would have said Endgame, just because of the build.
Oh no, never Endgame. Fucking game.
Let's keep the hot takes to a minimum. We're saying fuck Cap and fuck Endgame. Let's keep one viewer watching this to the end.
Fuck Cap is really a hot take. That's just a given. Everybody knows that.
It's usually more fuck Cyclops and Cap.
Both of them. They can both go.
That's my comic books more than that.
Anyway, I'm not mad at Infinity War just because of the things that came up into that. Like it was a build up with Infinity. It was a 10-year build up. So I'm not mad at that. But if you look at Infinity War and you strip away any context of the original movies and you just look at that as a singular movie, that is not a better movie than Eternals to me personally. Like if Eternals would have had a movie, like if they would have had 8 movies building up that were great, that like developed each one of the Eternals, I feel like it would have had a similar effect, because you've had years to build connections with these characters, and then you have this shocking thing, which in this movie they're introducing you to these characters, versus in Infinity War you already have relationships with all the Avengers, and Thanos has been built up over all the, like maybe like since the end of Avengers 1, I think is when they showed him in that one cutscene maybe.
Yeah, like he got like, in that 10-year span he probably got like 45 seconds of screen time, so I can't really say like you really got introduced to Thanos as a character in Infinity War, and we just both said like that he's one of the best characters in Marvel. So like,
well, I'm not saying he got developed, but as far as like he's there, like
you know he
like,
exists.
Yeah, like I think there's the one cutscene where he went and got the Infinity Gauntlet. I don't remember which movie it was where he went and got the Gauntlet. I
think it was one of the Thors after Thor. He goes like,
one of those Ragnarok or what it was,
or something. But his biggest scene is actually in Guardians 1. He's talking to Ronan. Not Ronan. I'm sorry. Is it Ronan? Yeah, it
was Ronan. Ronan the Accuser.
Yeah, Ronan the Accuser. I was thinking Ronan with an I, not Ronan with an A. But
you knew of him for years, though. You were able to speculate and
since the Avengers,
fan theories and things like that. Yeah, you knew
since the end of Avengers, that the post-credit scene in Avengers, you knew of him. But I think the better comparison is not Avengers Infinity War to this movie. I think it's actually Justice League, the original Justice League, compared to this movie.
Right.
Because this is what they pulled off what the Justice League couldn't. They actually had multiple characters introduced for the very first time, and they actually had them using their powers and abilities together as a team. They were split up and then came back together, all these things, and they managed to do it well. They actually managed to have a narrative and have it pull off. They actually managed to have them dealing with things, a situation that's bigger than larger than any of them, like any one of them alone could deal with, and they pulled it off. So that's what I think is a better comparison. Is this to Justice League?
There's no question which one's the better movie.
There's
between those.
By the way, if anyone, Otis, I need you as a personal favor to me. If you find anyone in the world that says that Justice League is a better movie than this, let me know so I can drive to their house
I can guarantee you there's some fanboy out there that says, "Oh, the Snyder Cut is way better than Eternals. What are we talking about? They had the cheap Justice League in there because they kind of really did have the cheap Justice League. Like they had Flash, Wonder Woman, and Superman.
Sure. It was, but even with that though, these characters already existed in the comics. It's not like they watched the Justice League or even read the comic books and said, okay, let's just put all the same exact ideas into this. Jack Kirby and them back in the '60s, and when they made the Eternals comics and made this. It's like,
I'm pretty sure that's exactly what happened. I think that's exactly what they did. It's like, oh, people like Superman, so let's make our own. That's just my opinion.
Well, that's Century, though, right? That's like
so there's like Athena. Like Athena is based off of the actual warrior goddess Athena, as opposed to based off of Wonder Woman. So they were basing it off of some of these were inspired.
That's because they went with they already took Princess Diana. I mean,
sure,
because that's Diana. I think the Roman equivalent of Athena, if I'm not mistaken. I gotta check that.
Roman mythology, yeah. Roman.
So Diana doesn't exist in Greek mythology or anything like that. She was a derivative of multiple ideas based on the female heroines of mythology. So in a sense, they're all eating each other. They're all cannibalizing each other in that way too. But let's say that's fine. Let's say that this was influenced by the original narratives of the DC comic books and all that kind of stuff. That Kirby, who worked for DC also, DC and Marvel, was inspired by this stuff from DC. Let's say that's the case. They still blew them out of the water with this movie, with these portrayals of these characters. If that's let's say that you are a real man, you're Otis. You are Otis East, and you were doing your thing.
East.
And then we make another man, make another version of Otis East. That's like, all kinds of other stuff, 10 feet tall. It's like, yeah, there's a real version of Otis East, but there's this other super duper over top version of Otis East. It's not that the other one doesn't exist. It's that we've taken that formula and made another one. That's all.
I'm making that persona. That persona's Kanye West. They're both from Chicago. He's Otis East. That's Kanye. Like, yeah, you're probably related somehow. Like some Asta. Like, yeah, he probably was just given away at birth, and you both related.
So here's my hot take. Fuck Kanye West. There. We all got.
That's not a hot take. That's not a hot take.
That's mine.
Love the music, but yeah. Oh, that's another tangent.
You won't have Kim K suing us in a couple weeks.
She got to finish law school first.
Know how I feel. Why would you say that?
and her 5 kids. Back on topic. But I agree with y'all that this is by far the best looking film, because they used plenty of the CGI for background, sure, but there are plenty of shots where they actually went to the Amazon. You actually see the real terrain they're actually on. There's some sweeping flying shots that the character that the Superman analog is doing. It's like, oh, this is the real actual area. This is not a CG map. This is actual real looking area, and the actual colors are vibrant. This part where they're in London, and you're seeing this, like, oh my gosh, these actual real colors on the screen, much more vibrant than a lot of the Marvel movies that have been in the years past. Obviously, they were surpassed by Guardians, perhaps, but this is still much more vibrant than many of the other films in the MCU. So just comparing it to other MCU films, it's like, yeah, this is a legitimate film. The actual acting, Jesus Christ.
Have actual actors.
Have actual actors. Have actual acting. Have actual ethos and pathos. I mean,
logos. There's plenty of logos where stuff made sense factually, like why they would be doing this.
Yes, like these are things that aren't, let's be honest, aren't in every MCU movie. Damn sure aren't in every superhero movie, that are very much present here. So again, on an objective scale, you cannot say that this is a poorly constructed or made movie. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way.
It looks beautiful. Sure. Like, it makes sense. Like, you watch the plot. You see how they got from point A to point B. It makes sense. The characters' motivations are there. It makes sense.
They have motivations.
Right.
You're speaking as if every character has motivations in movies and storytelling. That's bizarrely rare.
Right.
So I'm glad that they actually have motivations. Yeah.
Well, I think that's about all we can really say without hitting spoilers, unless you guys have anything else.
We can put the score out of 10.
Gotta do the score.
Oh yeah, out of 10. Obviously, I'm giving it like a 9.5 for me personally. That's just me though. How about you guys?
I'm gonna give it an 8.
It's a 7. It's a 7.
So, people, that, in case you guys don't know, on Otis's scale, a 7 is a regular person, 9 or 10. Just
Yeah,
giving
at
that
least a
disclaimer.
9. Yeah, and
So
Otis
don't get
7 is
pissed off
least
at him
a
if you
9.
give it a 7. It's not bad. It's just his level of criticism.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get into why it's a 7 when we get to the spoilers.
Oh yeah,
dig, you
that's
know.
fine. That's fine. And again, we understand. This is a movie that, as much as I like it and enjoy it and appreciate it, I can understand some of the gripes and grievances. Nothing to do with the politics of other things that are involved with this, or review bombing and that bullshit. Just the actual idea, as far as like, yeah, subjectively, there are things I can understand why some people like it, people dislike it.
And let me clarify, it's a if I'm grading it on the me scale, like the Otis scale, it's a 7. It's a Marvel, like 12. Like an MCU, like 12. Like
Right.
oh my god, yeah.
I'm right there. It's they've raised the bar for their filmmaking. You cannot do
absolutely
amateur backwoods bullshit anymore in the MCU and have it work. It's like, if this is the bar now, it's like
cough Black Widow.
Yeah, that's a whole review.
Moving on, guys, get into the second spoiler half, spoiler part of the show. We'll get into the second half with the spoiler section. One thing I really wanted to harp on that I kind of enjoyed, that's obviously done really bad in a lot of movies, was a subplot. The subplot of the deviants and their reason for being there. I really admire the fact that, one, it made sense, because again, subplots don't always make sense. We talked about that earlier. Two, in a similar way to Thanos, it kind of made me feel for the deviant, like I guess the super deviant that was evolving throughout the movie. Like I thought first off, he looked dope. Like his design was sick. I fucked with that design of the deviants in general. Secondly, I didn't really hate him. Like I didn't want him to fail, but I didn't want him to succeed at the same time. I grew an attachment to the character, so I didn't want them to die. But at the same time, I'm like, man, I won't be mad if like did whatever. So like the fact that they did a whole subplot that made sense and made you feel for the antagonist, quote unquote, one of the antagonists. I think they did the job. Again, it's like a mini Thanos to me in that aspect, how they did it.
See, but the thing is, like, is that the subplot or is that the main plot? Because that is the thing that we got introduced to these characters on, like to get rid of these deviants. Like that is that is my biggest issue with this entire movie, is the fact that you can't really like defend and say, okay, which one is a subplot, which one is the main plot? Is it, Icarus, like, doing everything that he did behind the scenes to make sure that they still stay on the plan from what's the big
Olympia?
No, not Olympia.
You mean the Celestial?
No, the Celestial's name. What's his name?
Aramis or Aramis?
Oh, you talking about Arishan?
Arishan. Yeah, Arishan. Yeah. So like, is the main plot like everything that Icarus was doing, or is the main plot everything that was going on with the deviants and finding out like everything that Arishan lied to him about? Like, what is the central focal point of this movie? Because I feel like at that end fight scene, they tried to do both and it didn't really turn out well. Like the death of that deviant dude was anticlimactic as fuck. Like, and don't get me wrong, I love Angelina Jolie. I think she killed it in this movie. I think that this is one of her better roles that she's had in a little while. But like, that fight was over in 4 seconds. Like, if that's the case, like, why didn't she just fight him when they saw him in the forest? She slashed him twice and it was over. Like,
yeah, it was what they were doing was essentially is they were trying to build up that deviant to be in another movie. He would have been the big bad. He would have been the top dog. And the biggest climactic end of the fight of the movie would have been Angelina Jolie avenging Gilgamesh, who kind of sort of was maybe her lover, not really, we're not sure.
Yeah, that was
killing him off.
I couldn't really connect.
But I mean, but the idea with that
I like to call him Strong Wong though. That's my name.
Strong Wong, bro.
Strong
I didn't want to. I felt like I was in a movie and felt like kind of like a racist. I'm like, is that Wong?
it looked like Wong.
Like Wong.
I got that actor.
Man had shoulders, bro. I was like,
no, he was great. Like,
he's one of my favorites.
Killed it. And it is a bad joke calling him Strong Wong, but like, Strong Wong.
He was
Strong Wong.
great.
That's
I
just
love
like,
him.
yeah.
But
I was
that would have.
mad.
I agree. That was a weird. That was definitely a subplot, more of a subplot, because it wasn't. You can tell it's a subplot because that happens literally under a cave,
like-
off main set, off the stage.
Like, and I don't like that. Like,
I agree.
that character was interested enough to hold their own. Like, I'm not saying that you don't put them in this movie, but don't kill them in this movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can do anything else with that in another movie easily. Like, the threat of a celestial destroying the planet is enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like it's like a similar issue to like when we watched the Mortal Kombat Legends movie a couple weeks.
Why would you compare? Why would you
I
bring it
mean,
up again?
Don't do it. It's not
doing?
that. No,
That's-
stop.
I'm not saying it's that bad. I'm not
Edit
saying
it
it's that bad. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. But I'm saying it's like you got two major plot points going on at the same time. You're going to end up neglecting one, and they did.
Yes.
And like honestly, I was more interested in the deviant than everything that was going on with Erisham. Like
yes.
me personally, even personally. So like I feel like to just let him die off that easily is almost like a waste of a character.
Well, also, I feel like they didn't explore it because the thing was, it's fun to get into the consciousness and sentience of a thing that was created with only a purpose of destruction. And when that thing realized what it's been created for, there was a fun parallel between the deviants and the Eternals. That's the whole idea.
Right.
Is that it's for them to come to the terms with the idea that they're one and the same. And it would have been fun if they had explored that a bit much, even in the cave with Angelina Jolie and that deviant. With that deviant being like, "I don't want to kill you. Don't you realize we're one and the same? What is going on here?" But however, I wasn't aware of that as much when I was still much more in my feral form.
Right.
It would have been a much more interesting idea if we actually had it that Angelina Jolie was struggling to kill him, or Thena was struggling to kill him because she realized, yeah, we actually are both tools of destruction created by this madman, more or less. But that wasn't the case.
Against
They
our
didn't explore
wills.
that.
Like neither of us chose
our
the path that
wills.
we're on. Like
Right.
I feel like that was a time to find some commonality and not necessarily make it so like, oh yeah, the deviants now the new Eternal. But like she was like, you know what, I have my reason to hate you, but you're not the big issue right now. I gotta stop Icarus. You know what I'm saying? Like that would have been okay to me.
If
So
she had left him
agree,
alive.
but I agree, but I also disagree. I agree in the sense of I feel like that subplot. Well, first off, I don't think it's bad in the way that they did. Like they kind of flipped the subplot and the main plot because you see it work in other movies before, where they'll take it to where. What's a big example of that? Kind of in the Matrix, kind of sort of where in the at least that's in the different movies, but never mind. That's a bad example. That was
Knives
bad.
Out, they kind of do it. And if you ask
Knives
Knives
Out,
Out, it's where you think one thing's happening, it's actually something else.
Where because it was a great way to because even the build up of the deviant and seeing him transform, like okay, you think it's gonna be a build up where he's gonna be like a big bad, like a Thanos level big bad, but then flipping. The one thing I enjoy about the twist is that it changes everything that the Eternals know about themselves in
Yeah,
general.
and that was dope. Like
That was a good twist.
I'll let you finish.
Yeah, so that twist, I enjoy the fact that they kind of switched the Eternal. They moved the deviants to a subplot. I enjoyed that because of how substantial the change was to the development of the Eternals. I do agree with you. I felt like that character was really wasted. I feel like maybe in that situation, even if Angelina Jolie's character Athena wins that fight, don't kill him off. Like maybe have him escape and come back at some later point. That's a character I would like to explore because we've seen them not really do. Because we've seen it before, in like Ultron and Vision, where they have these characters that become sentient and they develop a level of like being, and they don't really explore that more. I think they're kind of doing it better with Vision from WandaVision and getting into that whole thing. But I really would have loved to see this character, like even if he progresses a villain or maybe turn into like an anti-hero, maybe I would love to see him develop.
The slight slide in. I just wanted him to be Meruem at the end. Just be Meruem. Just be Meruem from Hunter x Hunter.
Hunter,
Like,
that's basically. It's funny. So this is something I'm gonna say the bigger picture. I think why the three of us like this movie more than most people, or at least the mainstream, is because it is basically an anime. Watching this, you brought up Miriam, obviously from Hunter x Hunter, the big bag, Hunter x Hunter. He very much was. I hadn't thought about it till just now, but he is very much like Miriam, or could have been like Miriam. When I was watching this, I thought, my gosh, this is so much like a more Eastern story, and the actual things reminded me so much of JoJo, where they're using their powers. These aren't traditional powers in a fight where I can punch you really far and hard. Some of them had that, but the main character, Sersi, she's basically Giorgio from Golden Sun.
Giorno, yeah,
Giorno.
basically, yeah.
She's basically Giorno from Golden Sun, where she can touch something and
Golden
give it
Wind.
life. Golden Wind. Sorry, Golden Wind. Golden Wind. She can touch inanimate objects and give them life, and you
I thought
can
she was
almost
like-
wield that in a fight.
The
Which I thought
Alchemist.
was really imaginative.
It was like Edward Alward, is what I was want to say. Like,
Yeah,
that was
I was thinking
Yeah,
Alchemist,
Alchemist,
yeah.
well,
But like
Alchemist,
it's kind of both. It's kind of both.
yeah. They're both in there, and I agree with what you're saying though, Deb. Is that it would have been fun to explore that character, make him more of an anti-hero, make him much more to do more with him. But it's almost they had to kind of abide by some of the Marvel rules where they could set up some. That'd be a bigger problem overall with the film, is they're setting up a lot of amazing ideas and concepts,
up
very
a
very
lot.
heady things. And they can't, because there's so much they're trying to explore, they can't really explore that much to the fullest extent. There was, if we can break it down real quick, the things that they set up, they're bringing up pretty much in some more serious ways the idea of existentialism, the idea of like a religion or faith, the idea of predestination, free will, the idea of what it means to be alive, as far as if it's worth living, worth loving someone what you want to.
These are deep concepts. They're not surface level concepts. And they're doing well.
Yeah.
Right, and there's a lot of them, and they're all in here. And I appreciate the fact that Chloe Zhao was the writer and director who, in trying to explore these things. The problem is it may be a bit much to try and tackle in one film. And as far as an MCU superhero movie, it is not on brand. It just isn't.
Right. But again, that's part of the reason I love it. I guess again, into like the last little segment, last little part here I have to say about it. The acting. Obviously, I want to talk about like your guys' favorite actor, maybe your favorite Eternal that you enjoyed. Obviously, for me, Phastos was my favorite Eternal. Sure. I'm really annoyed with the whole people get mad about the 15-second like kiss scene the dude had. We knew that he was gonna be gay like years before the movie came out. We already had that outrage. I thought we were past that at this point. Like people already knew he was gonna be gay in this movie because there's a whole blow up about that already. Like when it was announced a while ago. So let's get that out the way. But secondly, like his character, I really felt for him in that cutscene they had where he was in Hiroshima and he saw that he was like the cause of the nuclear like bombing of Japan, of Hiroshima. Is it Nagasaki? No,
Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Hiroshima and Nagasaki, yeah, both of those. But seeing like the level of devastation that was on his face and like that he felt like because you see when he started in the further in the beginning of the movie how his excitement about giving humans this technological advancement and like sharing that knowledge, and then saw that they're monsters to him later on. I was just seeing that development and seeing how he ends the movie. Is just his development to me was the best development out of all the Eternals. Because it just made the most sense. And two, maybe I'm biased as a black man, but that's just me. Part of intelligence and part of that.
I loved him. Brian Tyree Hill is one of my favorite actors out there working today. I love him to pieces. I loved his character. The bullshit about the him being gay or kissing. Who gives a damn? What are you talking about? It's 2021. The problem with it was I love that scene in Hiroshima. Again, it felt like anime. A character that was blaming themselves responsible for an overwhelming misdeed. The bit of the problem with it was that we didn't see the direct connective tissue. We saw it in Babylon at the beginning, where he was trying to create something, and then it's making it a plow instead. And it jumped so much time. You gotta remember how much time has passed since we even saw Phastos last. It's been a while, like maybe even like 45 minutes in the movie. And the last time we see him with is we see him a quick cut to him with his family, and then there's a weird flashback showing him in Hiroshima with the bomb going off. And it's kind of like there was no like setup to that part. It wasn't like we saw him working in part of the Manhattan Project, work with other scientists saying, hey, I have an idea. What if we do this? Then cut to the bomb going off. The problem is we're connecting these dots, but I know that some fans are like, wait a minute, I can't feel the impact of Phastos' sadness because it seems like he's just crying over the idea that humans are destroying themselves much more than the idea that he's crying because he's specifically involved with it. And that's one problem that I have with the movie is it's trying to cover so much ground and doing so many flashbacks so quickly all over the story at times. Even though it's a great plot, it's covering so much ground that it's a little hard to keep up with at times.
Right.
Like, cause I'm a big harper on character arcs when it comes to whether it be a series or a movie, and they started like they just started with like a good 10, 11, 12 character arcs between of course the Eternals. Then you see the character arc of the main deviant dude get started, and and then you see almost like the reverse character arc for Icarus. Like like they had so much that they were trying to build character wise. I feel like they ended up missing the mark on almost everyone. Like the only person I can say that I felt that got a full start to finish of who they were and why they were that person was Icarus. Like, and that's also my top pick for the Eternals. He killed it. Everybody else, like, you got bits and pieces of why they are how they are, but I don't feel like you got the full story for anyone but Icarus. That's
the only reason I'm not too concerned about it, and I don't think it was that bad, is because we know it's a Marvel movie, so we know they're going to be around for the next decade plus. So same reason, like when they introduced Cap in one movie, Iron Man in the movie, Hulk in the movie, they had 10 years and multiple appearances in movies to develop that character and that character arc. Like, we know this movie is not the end all be all. Well, for Icarus, probably the character that died, but which is probably why they got the most development.
Like the deviant died. That's why it bothered me, because like I really feel like he did not finish his character arc. Like,
do you honestly
I don't
believe he's dead? Like, again, it's Marvel, like, because we already know their Eternals were used on other planets, like deviants were used on other planets. Sure. So it'll probably have a similar. It's bound to happen again at some point. Have another deviant.
But like he got his sentience based off of the Eternals that he absorbed. Those specific. So like those Eternals are gone, so he can never be that person again. Like he'll never have.
Gone.
But I think they're gonna. That is like I'm with you on that specific one, but I know that's a concept they're gonna re-explore down the line at some point. Because they've already established there's like hundreds and thousands of deviants and hundreds of thousands of Eternals.
Yeah, it would be. They might. I guess the thing is, if we're basing this purely off of this film, like say for example, we're comparing to Phase 1.
Right. Phase
1, you knew exactly who Thor, regardless of the quality of the movie. You knew that Thor started off the beginning of his movie as a bit of a spoiled, pompous kid that had no humility, and by the end of that movie, he had an arc. He's like, I've grown, I've changed. Captain America was very much he had much more of a flatter arc, but still there was an arc there. There was a change of some kind. Same thing with Iron Man. Iron Man has the most dramatic one, most drastic one that everyone knows about. With this film, as Otis was saying, I do think that some characters have some arcs. My favorite character actually is Druig. I think Druig actually has the most arc. Even though he's more of the Sasuke of the story, again with anime, I feel like he still is very much the person who's like, I'm about ready to just destroy humanity. I love humanity. I know what to do with humanity. Where he's like, I realize I need to just let it go, let them be their own thing. The fact he's willing to leave them to their own devices shows he's grown and changed. But it's because there are literally 10 characters, and some of them have falling arcs. Like Icarus has a falling arc, as they call it. Some characters have a flat arc, which is some characters have more of a flat arc. Which is the speedster, Makkari. He's more of a flat arc.
And the blaster dude, like
Kingo.
He was the same.
More,
Kingo.
More of a flat arc as well.
Same person.
I don't even think his like. I don't even know what to say about him. Like he didn't he had development. He really didn't even have development. It was more so like he was a real big plot device in this movie. He was a plot device to me.
So he
was fine because he was funny. Again, he's a comedian, so that's part of the reason why he was like that. Like, I don't think he had the acting chops that like the other actors that had. They kind of brought him in for comedic effect, is what I felt like.
They did.
What you get when you cast a comedian.
I won't disagree too strongly with that. There were a couple moments where Camille did, like, there's a part where he definitely does not have he's not meant to have an arc, and to the point where at the very end he's like, I'm not gonna choose side. I refuse to even choose a side. He's pretty much saying I'm not gonna have an arc. But there's a part where, because he keeps calling Icarus boss, he's the only one that calls him boss, and he pretty much clearly admires the hell out of him. Sprite is in love with him, and this guy looks up to him. And there's a part where near the end where Icarus is going to blast. I think it's a speedster character, and Kingo jumps into dives to push her out of the way. He's in a sense that's the most he's going to do to stand up against Icarus. Is keep him from killing the person he wants to kill. Right. And then he stands up and says, "I walks away." And once it's revealed that Icarus is more or less dirty, that's the most dramatic pathos we see from Kingo. Is the scene where he stands up, where he says, "No, I can't fight against you guys.
Real
But
quick.
it doesn't have as much weight, obviously, as some of the other characters acting, but it still it shows the most chops he has there.
Real quick, I want to get into Sprite real quick because I feel like I want to like neglect her all around. I feel like she had a really interesting arc that was kind of cool to see with her like never being the girl that never grows up, and seeing because initially I was like, what are they gonna do for her? I didn't really get it, and then once they showed that like she was in love with Icarus, I'm like, okay, I get it. This is kind of it's kind of service level, but not really, because you get an idea that it's probably eating her up. The fact that she's watching all this go by for years, she's never growing up, but she's developing mentally, but not physically. And she doesn't get to do what everybody else gets to do. Yeah. So it was kind of a sad story, a tragic story, but it's everyone again had some level of like development that wasn't outside of what is I can't even pronounce his name anymore. Kilgore? I'm gonna say Kilgore.
Kilgore.
Killmonger?
Kingo. Yeah, no, I think
he's like the only one that didn't get like a full development to me.
Yes,
everyone else.
That's the thing. There's a difference between development and arc, character arc, and character development. All these characters are developed. It's the same thing as One Piece. In One Piece, pretty much none of the characters have arcs in One Piece, more or less. They all have development, though. You know, they all have very much have personalities. They all have very much have stories who they are. They don't really grow big or grow small. They're pretty much standard for the most part. That's what it is in this movie too. Some of these characters don't really change as much, but they all have it. They're very, very fleshed out. You know exactly what their personalities are like by the end of the film. There's no doubt about that. No doubt at all. My second favorite character actually was, as we talked about, is Gilgamesh. That dude, he was pretty much he didn't have much of an arc. He was moved pretty halfway through the film, but you knew his personality and you loved him. I feel like everyone in the theater when he died, even though it was like halfway through the movie, I could hear.
I was hoping he was like, get out, get away.
Yeah, I didn't want
like somebody save him. Yeah.
Everyone like Angelina Jolie moans for him. It's like, yeah, I get it.
He was literally like I ain't gonna lie, up until that point, he was like my favorite Eternal until like once he died. I'm like, all right, who am I looking for now? Fastos. All right, you're there. Yeah. So at that point, I'm like, wow.
Can't take out Strong Wong.
Strong Wong.
We have to. Bro, I don't know if we can.
I'm sorry. I promise. I'm not doing it to be like he acts like Wong. He talks like Wong. He's just swole and has different powers.
This is gonna get us in trouble, man. This is gonna get us in trouble. But I love Gilgamesh. I think it's great. I do love the idea. It seems like they were trying to show that Athena was kind of in love with him. She didn't say it outright. It implied it on some level.
It was implied.
I do wish they'd been more outright with it. Now we did talk about this too, Dev and Otis. The first actual fucking love scene, pun intended, in the MCU is in this movie. It actually shows Icarus and Sersi actually like getting it on. They actually are. It's actual.
Does that happen? I kind of blocked that out.
And it serves no purpose because the Eternals are infertile. They can't have children. So I'm like,
they can't. But it's much more the expression. It's not about breeding. It's about the expression of love. And also, think about this. There've been how many MCU films? 22 or so. This is the first actual like love scene we've seen in these movies. How is this happening?
But I feel like they could have.
I think it would have been weird if they tried to do a love scene with Black Widow and Hulk. Like that's just kind of, you know what I'm saying.
I mean, I feel like it could be kind of funny though, like seeing him like his heart rate go up or whatever.
That could be, but even like
it'll be on Pornhub. It's on Pornhub somewhere.
Probably. It's all on Pornhub. But like if you have like Pepper Potts and Tony been together for how long? Never. I mean, you see them kiss. I think once. Then you see that at the end with Captain America. I know, fuck Cap, I get it. But Captain America dancing with Peggy, and he kisses her barely slight peck, G level peck on the mouth. This is an actual scene of them like, oh yeah, they're definitely having sex. It's happening. It took 20 some odd years for that to happen. People are going nuts over the Festus kissing his husband. I'm going nuts over the fact they actually have a love scene in this. Good on you. And
I feel like they're the ones that don't need it the most, because when you have characters that are immortal, you could have easily shown them like their relationship through decades and years without having to show a love scene. Like
they don't need to show a love scene.
You don't need it. That's what like.
Here's the reason why I'm glad they did do it though, Dev, is because of storytelling. Because at the end, I mean, regardless of the acting, I know Sersi seems the most like reserved with her acting, but what only that can stop Icarus isn't the brutality or force, is the fact that he's like they make it clear like yes, he is still, he says it, but also they show it that he's in love with her. You mentioned Sprite before, how Sprite's in love with Icarus. We don't see that, we hear that. Kingo says, "Hey, you're in love with him. I see it." What they should have done is actually they should have shown Sprite looking at Icarus, admiring him, showing him kind of like we can gather,
like showed him like holding his picture or something. Something.
They didn't show any of that stuff. Up until Kingo says you're in love with him, Peter Pan story. I had no idea she was. I was like, okay, I guess it.
I would have guessed it.
Yeah, I didn't
would've
guess
guessed
that either. They didn't have anything
They
insinuated.
didn't have any
at all.
story, but there was no doubt at all that especially once you see that love scene between Sersi and Icarus, like yeah, these two are very much in love with each other.
But
And I love the idea too that Sprite sets up the story as far as Icarus flew too close to the sun, and she mentions like in Athens, it's like
Yeah.
it's a metaphor for talking about Sersi, how he flew too close, he fell in love with her.
That was beautiful to me though, like him flying, like how they ended that with him dying flying.
And then they
I'm
ended
like, what
it
is he
that
about? To,
way.
I thought he was just gonna come back in a later.
Oh,
movie. I'm like,
no.
oh no, he's flying.
done.
Oh, I'm like, oh, that's
Yeah.
sick. That was dope. Him flying into the sun was kind of.
I mean,
would y'all
Between
done it?
his name and then hearing the Peter Pan story from Kingo, like I knew exactly how this movie was going to end right at that moment. I was like,
Sure.
oh, Icarus is going to go bad and she's going to help him. Okay,
Yeah.
got it now. Yeah.
Well, it is it's a little bit because it's like regardless of what happens, she's on Team Icarus. So if
Right.
Team Icarus goes dark, she's going dark. I agree. But I have to put this out there real quick. What would y'all have done if as Icarus is flying up towards the sun, if he had said Superman like Vin Diesel in Iron Giant, would you have applauded or just said boo?
I would have laughed.
Man, I will never forgive your ass for this shit. This is some fucked up repugnant shit.
And definitely would have laughed.
I would have laughed hard. I would laugh hard. Sorry, Deb. I can tell by your face you are not amused by any of my antics. I'm sorry.
About Thor Ragnarok, because it is one of the most highly coveted films in the MCU for some reason.